Now, a man called Zohran Mamdani has won the race to become the next mayor of New York City. You've probably heard his name before, Mr. Mamdani, who will be the first Muslim, first South Asian, and the youngest person in a century to be elected as the famous city's mayor, used his victory speech to throw down the gauntlet, boy did he, to Donald Trump.
So, Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up. We will hold bad landlords to account because the Donald Trumps of our city have grown far too comfortable taking advantage of their tenants. We will put an end to the culture of corruption that has allowed billionaires like Trump to evade taxation and exploit tax breaks. We will stand alongside unions and expand labor protections because we know, just as Donald Trump does, that when working people have ironclad rights, the bosses who seek to extort them become very small indeed. New York will remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants, powered by immigrants, and as of tonight, led by an immigrant. So hear me, President Trump, when I say this. To get to any of us, you will have to get through all of us. When we enter City Hall in 58 days, expectations will be high. We will meet them. A great New Yorker once said that while you campaign in poetry, you govern in prose. If that must be true, let the prose we write still rhyme, and let us build a shining city for all. And we must chart a new path, as bold as the one we have already traveled. After all, the conventional wisdom would tell you that I am far from the perfect candidate. I am young, despite my best efforts to grow older. I am Muslim. I am a democratic socialist. And most damning of all, I refuse to apologize for any of this.
Blimey, Jon Sopel, co-host of The Newsagents and The Newsagents USA. He can talk, can't he?
Yeah, and it's not surprising that people are comparing him to Barack Obama, because that was the last time we had that sort of oratorical firecracker in the political sphere. His policies are very different from Barack Obama's. He's a lot further to the left than Barack Obama. But the ability to inspire, the charisma, the connection, the authenticity. And, you know, the interesting thing is that I don't think it's just in America that people are looking and thinking, wow, what do we need to learn from this guy? Because in some ways you could easily say that he's kind of a bit like Donald Trump. I mean, politics completely different, but an outsider, charismatic, can fire up an audience, has a way of connecting with people. And this is something that the Democratic Party has been lacking. And, you know, for the past year, since the kind of drubbing they took at last year's presidential election, and it's exactly a year since Donald Trump won, people have been saying, oh, can I find a pulse on the Democratic Party's body? No, I can't find anything. They're dead. they came roaring back last night, not just in New York, but in New Jersey, Virginia, a number of other places as well. And so this was a very, very good night for the Democrats. I think there'll be politicians in Britain looking at the way Mamdani ran that campaign and thinking, what can we learn here?
I mean, he just didn't pull punches, did he? He just decided to fully go forward entirely as himself.
Exactly. And there was none of the kind of, OK, I've got a bit of a polling weakness here because I'm a Muslim. He lent into all of it. He lent into all of those things. And you think about, this government's debate over what should it do about reform? Does it kind of ape some of their policies, or does it have to worry about the left flank? Zohran Mamdani, look, he's got expectation now. He's won. It was a huge win. He engaged young people. He engaged a large audience of Americans, New Yorkers who wanted to vote for him. He's now got to deliver on a lot of the things that, and that's a whole different ball game. But in terms of the ability to campaign and to lean into who you are, and so I am a democratic socialist. Yeah, I am a Muslim. Yeah, I am young. Yeah, I've got a lot of dreams. And I think he kind of, it was like he put a sword through the heart of the old Democratic Party as well. Not just he didn't just beat the Republicans. He was fighting the Democratic establishment as well, a lot of whom are very old. And I think this is a sort of a generational shift in politics in America.
Which is another comparison with Obama in his earlier days, isn't it? You mentioned young people there. I heard one commentator, Ben Rhodes, former Obama speechwriter, saying this morning that whatever this vote was, and clearly it was incredibly successful for him, it was a vote from old to young rather than from centre to left. I mean, it was centre to left, but that isn't the standout thing. The standout thing is the young engaged and came out in their droves for him.
Totally. And I think there is a related aspect to this, which is that his message, discipline, was about affordability. How can you afford to be a young person living in a city like New York, where the rents are extortionate, the travel costs are high, all of those things. And he's saying, we're going to have, free buses in New York. We're going to have rent freezes in New York. We're going to have free childcare in New York. I think that having policies, if you look at in the UK, and I'm sure in 3 weeks' time we'll be talking about the triple lock for pensioners that ensure that their money always goes up and they are the most protected. And, if you're in your 20s or 30s, you look at public policy in this country.
What are you doing for me?
It's all geared for the 65-year-olds because of the conventional wisdom being that old people go out to vote but young people don't. And now you've got Mamdani having won in America, having talked about affordability, and young people have gone out to vote in huge numbers for him. And I think that was significant.
It is. And so, social media isn't new anymore in politics, but it's still growing in its influence in politics, isn't it? And it seems to me that social media will be a big part of the thing that gets young people, whatever their political feelings, more engaged and out there and voting and campaigning. I think we're already seeing it, really, aren't we?
Yes, and you can see that the people that were attracted to Mamdani probably are not the people who traditionally would have the highest percentage turnout in their age demographic. A lot of young people have gone out and done this. And I wonder whether there'll be people in this country as well who will think, actually, maybe we've got some of our polling and our assumptions wrong and that we need to rethink some of this. It was a really, really good night for the Democrats. I mean, look, New York isn't Doncaster, Blackpool, Hartlepool. And New York equally isn't the Midwest of America or the Deep South or,
So you have to make your comparisons carefully.
So you can't just do a read across and say, oh, well, here's a template. Let's just bring it in at the next general election.
But the spirit of it is...
But the spirit of it and the way you do it and, this kind of... we listened to Rachel Reeves yesterday talking about, doing a big speech where she said, I need to be honest with the British people. And then the journalist said, well, be honest with us. And she says, well, I'll be honest in 3 weeks' time and tell you then. And you think, well, what was that all about? And I just think that, and you listen to a Mamdani communicate and you think, OK, there is a role. And I think when there are so many distractions to us today about what we're listening to, what we're focusing on, shall I go and make a cup of tea or shall I listen to Shelagh Fogarty? Obviously, you're going to...
Get the tea, then sit down and listen to me for 3 hours.
Exactly.
Would be my advice.
But there are plenty of things that distract. And I think politics today, you need to be communicating. Donald Trump grabs people's attention the whole time. He does it brilliantly. And I think that on the other side of politics, you've got a Mamdani figure on the left of American politics who's trying to do something similar.
It's funny, it might be a bit of a stretch, speaking of stretching comparisons, but when I was hearing him throw down that gauntlet to Donald Trump and turn the volume up, it actually made me think of, going back the Thatcher years. And because I was growing up in Liverpool at the time, Derek Hatton. Yeah. Derek Hatton took the fight to Thatcher. I mean, I didn't agree with almost anything he did, but he took the fight, he made it personal, he locked horns, he called her everything, she called him everything. And we're going to see that with bells on here, aren't we?
Yeah, and it'll be fascinating. In response to Mamdani saying, turn the volume up.
He did.
Well, Trump immediately replied, and so it begins.
Exactly, yeah.
And so it's going to be a kind of, buy your popcorn, watch them slug it out, the old guy versus the young guy. But I think it's emblematic of so much about what is happening in American politics between the generations.
And beyond the drama of it, and it will be fun to watch, it'll be interesting to watch, the serious side of it, I guess, is Trump will be watching this to see if there is any contagion in other states, because that you made the sensible point last week that New York isn't the same as other parts of America, but still they can't afford to sit on their hands about this, can they? The Republicans.
There were all sorts of things last night that should be causing serious alarm and concern for the Republican Party. There was a Democrat who won the governor's race in Virginia. There was a Democrat who won the governor's race in New Jersey. There were kind of big wins on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. I could go really boring and nerdy about American politics now. But there was one other vote, which was called Proposition 50 in California. And it essentially is a vote which allows the governor, a Democrat, who is being talked of as a presidential frontrunner in 28, to redraw some of the electoral maps in the Democrats' favour. Now, Trump is saying, I did badly, or the Republicans did badly last night, because my name wasn't on the ballot anywhere. But his name's not going to be on the ballot unless the Americans rewrite the Constitution. His name's not going to be on the ballot ever again, because he'll have had his 2 terms. And so the Republicans have got to figure out, they've still got inflation, they've still got affordability crisis, cost of living is a huge problem. How do the Republicans win with a resurgent Democratic Party and without Donald Trump's name on the ballot? And that doesn't just apply to New York, that applies across America.
Across America. Again, stretching comparisons maybe, is if we have a Mamdani, who is it? Maybe Angela Rayner, she'll come back.
Well, I mean, look, I tell you, the person who's doing the most passable impression of it at the moment is Zach Polansky of the Green Party. And, 2 guys with a first name beginning with Z are making waves at the moment, and it's Zach and Zohran.
And dancing on social media. And
I just think that is the challenge for, as the Conservatives and Labour kind of look at the polls, which give them a combined vote of something like 34% or something like that, you've got to be thinking, what do we do to start winning people back?
Are we going to hear Trump do to Mamdani, and maybe with bells on, what he's done to Sadiq Khan and start making out he's about to introduce Sharia law everywhere?
Yeah, he can do that, but what we've seen from Mamdani is he'll lean into it. He'll lean into it and point out, probably the absurdity of it. And the more that Trump came out against Mamdani and saying it will be terrible to vote for this communist, it will be disaster for America, he's an idiot, he doesn't know what he's doing, the more it helped Mamdani. Mamdani turned that into a source of additional votes. So Trump's got to be clever how you play this. I think he's probably, I think he's frightened the Republican Party, and I think that actually he's frightened parts of the old established Democratic Party as well.
And a word on Mamdani's statements, both recent and historic, on Israel.
Yeah.
Not just since October the 7th, but certainly since October the 7th. New York feels like a Jewish city, doesn't it, in many ways?
Yes, it does.
I guess he's thrown the cat amongst the pigeons there.
I think Mamdani is symbolic of a change in American politics in attitudes towards Israel, where, it is the most pro-Israeli country that I've been in, and I think that is changing a bit, and he symbolises part of that. But he's also got to be careful as well, because there is a very big Jewish population there. He says he's not an anti-Semite, but he hasn't kind of entirely walked away from some of the anti-Israel things that he said about, permanent intifada and whatever else. And so there are things where I think there'll be a lot of people who'll be waking up in
Challenging him
New
on
York, who will be challenging and want to
worried.
see, how he governs and what he does with this power and this platform that he now has. Because on one level, you've got the policy platform of, the rent freezes and the free buses and the childcare. That's fine. But he's also a figurehead now of New York City. And how he uses that is also going to be critical.
And am I right in saying because he wasn't born in America, he can't be president?
Yes, he was Ugandan born.
So that will be the one thing that Trump might get some relief about.
Exactly.
Because
He cannot be... he was born
listening
outside
to
of the
that
United
speech,
States.
You'd have, if he did have the right to run, you'd be thinking, God, there's...
But he is now the most powerful socialist, self-identifying socialist that has been elected in the US. I mean, there's Bernie Sanders, who's a senator in Vermont, and there's Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, who's a congresswoman in New York, but nothing to touch being elected to a position like mayor of New York, and at 34 years old as well.
They're the three musketeers, aren't they? You've just mentioned there of him and them.
Yeah, and this is
Dems.
what they hope will be the face of the Democratic Party of the future.